There's something undeniably thrilling about a wildlife safari. The open landscapes, the raw beauty of nature, the chance to see lions, elephants, and leopards in their natural habitat. It's the kind of adventure people dream about for years. In rare but haunting cases, the very wilderness that draws us in has claimed lives in the most disturbing, unpredictable ways. These aren't just accidents. They're terrifying reminders that when you enter the wild, you're not in control. It was a clear December afternoon in 2018, deep in the heart of South Africa's Madikwe Game Reserve, the kind of place where the wild still rules, where silence hums with tension, and where every tree and shadow might be hiding something ancient and untamed. At Leopard Rock Lodge, guests were sipping drinks and taking in the sun-drenched plains, unaware that something massive, something violent, was heading straight toward them. It came without warning. A bull elephant, 6 tons of muscle and fury, had broken through a fence, its mind lost to the blinding storm of must. A brutal, testosterone-fueled state that transforms even the most majestic elephant into a ticking time bomb. Rangers knew the risks. Locals knew the signs. But no one expected it to breach the boundary and charge straight into human territory. Mark Lautenbach did. He saw it coming. Mark wasn't just another guide. He was a legend, a wildlife photographer, a master tracker, and one of South Africa's most respected rangers. If anyone could stop an escalating crisis, it was him. Guests remember the way he stepped forward, calm but focused, locking eyes with the creature as it thundered closer. He wasn't running. He wasn't screaming. He was trying to stop the unthinkable. But there are moments in the wild when even the best are helpless. The elephant didn't hesitate. It charged like a freight train, the earth shaking with each step, dust exploding around its feet. In the blink of an eye, it was on Mark. One strike, then another, then another. The sound was sickening, the crack of bones beneath thousands of pounds of fury. Screams echoed through the lodge as people watched, frozen in disbelief. There was no time to intervene, no way to pull him out. The attack was over in seconds. Mark lay crushed and lifeless, his body a broken echo of the man who had once roamed these lands with reverence and skill. And the elephant, still raging, still dangerous. Rangers, their faces drained of emotion, made the impossible call, to put the animal down before it could kill again. Locals whispered about that day for months. One expert, still shaken, said softly, "Mark was the kind of man who could read the bush like a book." But that elephant wasn't listening. It had made its decision. The wild doesn't care how much you know. It doesn't bow to experience or courage or years of service. And in that moment, on that blood-stained patch of earth, it reminded everyone watching just how thin the line really is between awe and terror. Dr. Thomas McAfee had spent a lifetime saving others, guiding students, leading hospitals, unlocking the complexities of medicine. A man revered for his intellect and admired for his calm strength. But on one unforgiving day in September 2013, far from the lecture halls and hospital wards where he had made his mark, all of that was stripped away. Out in the raw, pulsing heart of Africa, none of it mattered. The wild had the final word. He had come to Tanzania's Tarangire National Park seeking stillness before a new beginning. At 58, McAfee stood on the edge of a major transition, about to leave his post as a prominent dean at UC San Diego to take on the role of chief executive at the Keck Medicine of USC Medical Foundation. But before diving into that next chapter, he chose to pause, to breathe, to wander among the wild things. He had been to Africa before, drawn to its rhythms, its mystery, its promise. This was meant to be a final indulgence, a reward for years of dedication. Instead, it would be his end. The land was golden, sprawling, ancient. Baobab trees rose like giants from the earth, and the skies stretched wider than the eye could grasp. McAfee set out on foot with 2 companions, hoping to witness nature without barriers. Close, honest, real. But in the wilderness, intimacy comes with risk. And when that line is crossed, nature doesn't whisper warnings. It erupts. They saw the elephants before they heard them. A herd, silent but watchful, rising from the brush like moving boulders. No trumpets, no stomping, just presence. Maybe they got too close. Maybe the matriarch sensed something. Maybe it was just a moment, one single invisible spark that ignited terror. The reaction was instinctual. They turned and ran, but McAfee stumbled. His foot hit a patch of uneven ground, and just like that, he was down, vulnerable, alone. The elephant charged, no hesitation. A wall of flesh and power, unstoppable and ancient. Its steps shattered the silence, pounded the dirt, and then it was on him. The impact was immediate and merciless. The weight of nearly 7 tons crushed down again and again until there was no hope, no breath, no more time, and then silence returned. Help came, but it was already too late. The man who had mastered the complexities of life was gone, claimed by a force he could neither predict nor escape. His body was taken to Arusha Lutheran Medical Center, and preparations began to bring him home. But how do you bring someone back from a moment like that? How do you explain it? His sister, Skylie McAfee, spoke through the heartbreak. He was doing what he wanted to do, and it was true. He had always known the dangers. He respected them, but even that respect couldn't shield him. Because in the wild, there are no credentials, no reputations, no second chances. Back in California, the news sent shockwaves through the halls of UC San Diego. Students, colleagues, and friends struggled to grasp it. This man who had guided so many was simply gone. It's a true tragedy and great loss to all of us, wrote Munir Soliman, a fellow leader in the medical community. Memorials were planned, tributes were written, but the void he left behind was too vast to fill. And still, questions lingered in the dust. Were they with a guide? Was the trail too close to the herd? Should there have been someone with a rifle? Someone to intervene? Or had they wandered just a step too far into a place that doesn't forgive mistakes? In Tarangire, the rules are ancient. The animals don't hate you. They don't care about your story, your purpose, or your dreams. They act on instinct. And when you make a wrong move in their world, they don't hesitate. Elephants are revered for their intelligence, their gentleness, but also feared for their power. When that power is triggered, it is absolute. A charging elephant doesn't negotiate. It doesn't pause to reconsider. It becomes a storm, and if you're in its path, it ends only one way. Dr. McAfee's final moments weren't in a hospital or a classroom, but beneath the crushing weight of something primal and unstoppable.
Tonight, the terrifying moment a safari turned fatal for an American tourist.
The African wilderness had always whispered to her, calling out with promises of wonder, danger, and beauty that couldn't be tamed. For Gail Matson, it was more than a vacation. It was a vow she'd made to herself. One last journey, one final taste of wild freedom before her 80th birthday. She'd traveled far, crossed oceans and decades to feel the rhythm of the land beneath her feet. But in Zambia's Kafue National Park, where the line between awe and peril is razor thin, her dream unraveled into a nightmare. The safari began like any other, a rumbling vehicle weaving through golden grasslands, the scent of dust and life thick in the air. The sun hung low, spilling light over the endless horizon. It was a picture-perfect moment. Cameras clicked, laughter bubbled. Somewhere in that open space between peace and adrenaline, they were exactly where they wanted to be. Then the stillness broke. Out of the brush came movement, slow, steady, and impossibly massive. A bull elephant emerged, its form both ancient and breathtaking. It moved like a shadow from another time, majestic and silent. At first, no one panicked. It was the kind of encounter safari-goers dream of. Everyone watched in awe. But the air shifted. Something about the way it stood, the way its ears lifted like flags of warning, the way the low rumble rolled through the earth. It all felt wrong, and then it charged. The change was instant, a blur of muscle and rage. The elephant lunged forward with terrifying speed, closing the distance in seconds. The guide slammed the brakes. The vehicle jerked to a halt, but it was already too late. The impact came like a thunderclap. Tusks slammed into steel. The truck rocked violently, then lifted, flipped, and crashed back down. It was chaos. Screams, metal twisting, bodies tumbling. The world turned upside down. Dust filled the air. Panic swallowed every sound. And then, silence. When the dust settled, people began to move, groaning, crying, bleeding. But not Gail. She lay still, pinned beneath the weight of the moment, the violence, the wild. Her dream of one last adventure had ended suddenly and savagely in the very place she'd longed to be. The others were pulled from the wreckage. A call for help rang out. Guides rushed to stabilize the injured. But for Gail, there was nothing left to save. Her life, full of curiosity and courage, had been taken in a flash. Later, her daughter, Rona Wells, would confirm the loss that seemed too surreal to believe. Her mother had died doing what she loved, chasing wonder. But that doesn't soften the sharp edge of tragedy. especially not when the footage surfaced, grainy, violent, unforgettable, showing the elephant's brutal charge, the helplessness of those inside, the unforgiving truth of nature's wrath. Wilderness, the safari company, claimed their guides were among the best, highly trained, deeply experienced, but all the training in the world couldn't stop what happened that day. The escape route was blocked. The terrain offered no mercy, and nature had made its choice. Wildlife photographer Marlon Dutoit tried to make sense of it. "It's extremely rare to see an elephant that irate," he said. "Thousands of people go on safaris every day. Most come back with stories, not scars. But the wild does not owe you safety. It does not operate on probability. It does not care about your age, your intentions, or your dreams." Gail's body was eventually flown back to the United States, with the help of Zambian officials and the U.S. Embassy. Friends back home mourned a woman who had lived with fearless wonder. "She told us this was going to be her last big adventure," said John Longabout, a friend from Arizona. "She was about to turn 80. She thought maybe it was time to slow down."
The American woman mauled to death by a lioness at a South African safari park has been identified as Catherine Chappell from Westchester County.
The African sun shifting shadows over the dusty paths of the Lion Park near Johannesburg. For Catherine Chappell, it was exactly the kind of moment she lived for. She had always chased the extraordinary through her travels, through her work, through the lens of her camera. And on that June afternoon in 2015, she was chasing it again. Catherine wasn't just a tourist. At 29, she had already carved a name for herself in the world of visual effects, helping to bring Game of Thrones, Divergent, and Captain America to life on screen. She was the kind of person who made the impossible look real. But no digital monster, no studio-crafted scene could prepare her for what the wild would show her that day. She had come to South Africa with a mission. She wanted more than just photos, more than memories. She wanted to fight for something, planned to make a documentary exposing the brutal reality of poaching. This was personal to her. She believed in it. And before diving into that work, she gave herself a week to take in the land she hoped to protect. The safari vehicle creaked and rolled through the reserve, surrounded by tall grass and golden light. Birds called overhead. Somewhere in the distance, something growled low. The moment felt still and electric all at once, like the kind of silence that comes just before something happens. Then it did. From the brush, a lioness stepped into view. She was enormous, muscles flexed beneath her sleek coat with every step. Her eyes, deep, unreadable amber, fixed on the vehicle. Catherine reached for her camera, her instinct to document beauty overriding everything else. She rolled the window down. There are always rules on safari. One of them is sacred. Do not open the windows. But in that instant, the rules seemed to blur. It felt safe. It felt magical. It felt like one of those moments you're supposed to grab before it's gone. But the wild doesn't care how it feels. The lioness moved closer, calm, almost curious. Her head tilted, her eyes didn't blink. And then, without a sound, she lunged. It happened faster than anyone could scream. A blur of fur and claws and teeth. The lioness was through the window, jaws clamped onto Catherine before anyone could reach her. The vehicle exploded into chaos. Blood splattered across the seats. Catherine didn't even have time to pull back. The driver, Pierre Pogiter, fought to save her, pounding on the horn, shouting, slamming the vehicle into reverse. But the lioness was too fast, too strong. In the panic, Potgieter collapsed, struck by a heart attack brought on by the sheer terror of the moment. It was over in seconds. Paramedics rushed to the scene, but there was nothing they could do. Catherine lay still, her camera shattered on the floor. The woman who had built her life telling stories, crafting fantasy and dreaming big, had become part of something achingly real. The news of her death rippled outward. Her family, her mother Mary, her father John, her siblings Jennifer, Lauren, and Ryan, were shattered. Katie was brilliant, kind, adventurous, they wrote. Her energy and passion could not be contained by mere continents or oceans. She had lived with wide open arms. She had embraced the world, and the world had taken her. An investigation followed, but the conclusion was painfully clear. The lioness hadn't acted out of malice. She had simply acted like a lion. The wild doesn't ask questions, and it doesn't wait for logic. It responds. And when the boundary between human curiosity and animal instinct is broken, it responds without hesitation. In July at Badeling Wildlife Park, families in air-conditioned cars cruised slowly through the sprawling drive-through safari, cameras ready, marveling at the rare chance to see Siberian tigers up close. It was meant to be thrilling, but safe, a contained adventure. But nature doesn't care about fences, or forms, or the illusion of control. Inside one of those vehicles, tension simmered. A woman, later identified as Zhao, was locked in an argument with her companions. Words flew, frustration built, and in a split-second act of anger, she made a decision that would change everything. She opened the car door. The rules couldn't have been clearer. Stay inside the vehicle, doors locked, windows up. But in that heated moment, she stepped out into the open, unaware or unwilling to believe that the danger was real. She barely had time to register the movement from the tree line. And then it came. Out of the brush, a tiger charged, minus 400 pounds of muscle, hunger, and precision. It struck like lightning, jaws clamping down with terrifying force, dragging Zhao off her feet and into the shadows of the enclosure. The sound that followed, the screams, cut through the summer air like sirens. Panic exploded inside the car. Zhao's mother and a man jumped out, instincts overriding fear. Her mother didn't hesitate. She ran straight toward the beast, toward her daughter, toward death, but she never made it. A second tiger, faster, meaner, more ferocious, barreled into her like a freight train. The impact was brutal. She was mauled within seconds, struck down in front of her family, her sacrifice unfolding in plain sight. She died trying to do what any mother would, save her child from the unimaginable. Surveillance cameras caught it all. The footage, leaked online and circulated across Chinese social media, showed the chaos in grim detail. The speed, the power, the helplessness of it all. Viewers watched as the tigers vanished into the undergrowth, dragging their victims with them, leaving behind only blood and disbelief. By the time help arrived, there was little left to do. Miraculously, Zhao survived. Though critically injured, her body torn and bloodied, her mother was gone, devoured by the very wilderness they'd come to admire. In the days that followed, the questions came hard and fast. Why did she get out of the car? Had she ignored the warnings, or had she never fully understood them? Zhao insisted she had no idea the document she signed at the gate was anything more than standard registration. She claimed she didn't realize the danger was real. And then came the accusations. Zhao alleged that a park official stationed in a nearby patrol vehicle failed to intervene, sat watching, perhaps frozen, perhaps indifferent, as the nightmare unfolded. Outrage erupted across the country. Who was responsible? Could it have been prevented? Was this a failure of communication or of human judgment? But the wild doesn't wait for blame. It doesn't pause for explanations. It just acts. Siberian tigers aren't villains. They're apex predators, designed by evolution to hunt, strike, and kill with perfect efficiency. Once they've targeted something, there's no pause, no second guessing. There's just the kill. Zhao's mother made a choice most wouldn't have the courage to make. She ran into the jaws of death without thinking, because that's what love looks like in its rawest, most terrifying form. A mother facing down monsters for her child. And in the end, that one moment of stepping outside, just 1 foot onto the earth where tigers roam, was all it took to turn a family outing into one of the most haunting tragedies ever witnessed in a zoo setting. The tiger enclosure at Battling remains open. Visitors still pass through with wide eyes and ready cameras, marveling at the beauty beyond the glass. But now, every wheel that rolls past those trees carries a shadow, a sense of tension, a whisper of what happened that day.